And yet I want to at least finish the study since we've been going through it for
Yeah.
the last several weeks, and at least to have hopefully at least for you guys some geography and understanding and prepared for next time. Yeah. So I don't know, but the latest reports I've seen looks like
Well, I'm thinking I should not go next time. Next time I should just take a pass so everybody else can enjoy it.
no, but it'll work out. The fortunate thing with this is I think they're inflicting enough damage that it's going to be years and years and years before Iran is an issue again, which is the main issue. So
Yeah, I agree.
so we'll see what happens, but
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and hop into our study for
Just so
today.
you know, Scott, just so you know, you're kind of coming in and coming out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, yours is too. I
You're
wonder.
clear for me.
You're clear for you. Okay. So,
Yeah, you're clear for me.
So it might be you, Julie.
it probably is. I'm coming in and out.
All right. So yeah, I don't know if you want to try to restart something on your end or just see how it goes. If it seems
But for the most part, it's good. but
Okay.
I'll just nod my head, pretending like I'm not hearing you.
okay, I can't see you anyways when I'm doing this. So well, if you miss too much of it, I have it recorded, and so you can catch up
Right.
on the recorded if you want. So, well, we'll get started here. Again, just our general map. We have the Sea of Galilee. Let me share that screen because I didn't do that yet. So let me share my screen and then get into it here. All right, you have the screen.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, you can see the big mouse pointer here.
Yes. Ooh, that's
Yep.
real big.
Yeah. All right, so we have the Sea of Galilee coming down to the Dead Sea. Of course, we've been in Jerusalem the last couple of days here. What we're going to do in these days, these last 2 days, is kind of do a mixture of some Jerusalem, but not the old city. We're going to hit some of the museums and other things that are very beneficial towards us. But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take opportunity here to go down to, and I should have marked it, down to this region near Bethlehem. And we're going to go to right here to Herodian National Park. Now, it is spelled many different ways. Sometimes it's Herodium, Herodian. It all depends who's pronouncing it. And like I said before, in Israel, sometimes they spell things, even on their signs, they spell things differently, which is kind of interesting to see. But we'll go from Jerusalem here. It's really not too far. One of the neat things we'll get to see along the way is these are the fields on the outskirts of Bethlehem. So the idea of the shepherds would have been in these fields. So we'll get the opportunity to see those on the way to Herodium. We will not go into Bethlehem. One of the reasons simply being it's part of the West Bank, and there's really not much to see. All there is the Church of the Nativity, and we were there years ago, and there wasn't much to see at all. It wasn't really worth our 4 or 5 hours getting through the checkpoints and all that to go into Bethlehem. And so we'll get to drive by, though, the fields, and then we're going to come down to the place Herodium or Herodian. And this is kind of the picture of how it looks today, the similar of that. What it is, it's somewhat of a natural hill, but yet it's also a mixture of a natural and a man-made hill that was built by Herod the Great. And eventually it became the place of Herod's burial. And so just another image looking from the top. What there would have been on top of this, as you see a recreation here, is there would have been a great fortress on top of this hill. And it would have gone down into basically this complex or this region with a pool. One of Herod's sons was actually most likely drowned in one of these pools. Herod had him drowned because he was fearful of him. And one of the unique things about this, again, there's not as much biblical significance being built by Herod the Great, but it gives you an image of how things would have looked Even today, as they've kind of done a lot more digging on it in the past, even since we first started going there, I think 16 years ago, our first visit there, a lot of this has been excavated. There was a mini amphitheater. We have a really neat thing. We'll go into this region here, and they have a presentation of what the area would have looked like. The wallpaper that was on that wallpaper, but the frescoes that were on there, just an image of how things would have looked in the days and times of Jesus. We'll have opportunity then to walk up here in here and just get a view of the remnants of how this would have been built. To understand, here was a master builder. Eventually, this was occupied a short time by some rebels when the Romans came through. Some monks also came through, and so there's different structures we'll see on here. Again, biblical significance, it's not really a whole lot. One of the unique things, though, from here is you can see this is the back of the Mount of Olives. So here would be like the area of Bethany and Bethpage would be in this region, and you go over the Mount of Olives to Jerusalem. This is the region where Jesus would have stayed. Also significant is that many worshipers that would have come from Galilee during the feast and festivals would have camped on this. So just like you would see these houses, there would have been many tents during the times of Jesus, as many people would have come and camped rather than stay in the city of Jerusalem, because there just wasn't room to be able to do that, and the cost of trying to stay at places would have been enormous. So many times they would have taken opportunities to be here on the backside of the Mount of Olives. So when Jesus would have come through, like on when he came through for Palm Sunday, he would have come over this hill. And you'll note 3 towers here. These kind of help see from a distance where Jerusalem would be, or the Mount of Olives are. These are basically kind of church towers now. I think this is a Lutheran church tower, and I think this is a Russian Orthodox one. This is actually from the Hebrew University, the towers there. There's a chance we could climb these towers one day, but they're often closed. I know they weren't open when we were there last time. And again, they give you an overview. But we'll make mention of this when Jesus would have been here, somewhere here, and he describes how, say to this mountain be moved. He could have been pointing at Herodium and the power of the Roman army. And we'll talk about that while we're on the Mount of Olives, as well as the Herodium. And so that's where we'll have opportunity to visit there in the Herodium. Again, not a whole lot of biblical significance, but that's the idea of that. From there, from the Herodium, what we're going to do is we're going to go up here. And this is the one day we're going to be in West Bank territory, in the Palestinian territory. But these roads are guarded by Jerusalem or Israeli forces, because there's several settlements all along here. So we will be traveling up here into the area right around here. I just saw it here, over here to the area of Shiloh. And so that's where we'll go first. When we get to Shiloh, this is kind of an overview of the region of Shiloh. The unique thing about Shiloh is right around here is where the tabernacle would have been set up, and would have been for 300 plus years, 360 years. When the tabernacle was brought into the land of Israel during the time of Joshua, when they conquered the land, they would have set it up here in Shiloh. It's where the story of many things that Eli, Samuel would have been here. Hannah, as she prayed, would have taken place here. And so when we come here, we'll do a lot of study of the tabernacle. Again, this is a reconstruction. This isn't at Shiloh. This is for somewhere else, but the idea of this is where the tabernacle would have originally looked like. By the time it was in Shiloh, they believed that it was more of a permanent structure and not just a tent. So it was kind of a structure built like where the tent would have been, and would have been there during that period. So we'll watch. They have a real neat hologram presentation about the tabernacle, and just increase our understanding of the tabernacle here in Shiloh. That's really much of what we're going to see while we're there in Shiloh. That's actually Gerizim there. So that's as we travel there, but it is really neat to see because we'll talk about that and think about the idea of while there were sacrifices continually made here on these hills all around this area, they have found remnants, many remnants of bones, a variety of bones that were used basically after sacrifices were made. They would have then sat and eaten part of their sacrifices while watching this at the 3 feast days that they would have traveled here to Shiloh throughout the year. So we'll talk about that because, again, definitely the Old Testament significance where the Ark of the Covenant would have been, as well as where the Philistines would have come and invaded and taken, or actually they didn't take it from here first because they took the Ark of the Covenant out to battle with them. Eventually, it never came back here and stood outside of Jerusalem till it was brought there when the temple was built during the later period. But that's where really the significance of Shiloh. From Shiloh, what we're going to do is we are going to head north still, and we're going to come to this area near Nablus. We cannot go in Nablus, which Nablus is the modern day of Shechem. We can't go in there, but we will go to Mount Gerizim. The reason you can't go in there is Israeli vehicles can't go into this area, and so we'll have an Israeli rental car, so we won't be able to get there. Now, what's significant about Mount Gerizim is right here, and then you also have Mount Ebal over here. So we have Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Many references to this region in the Old Testament specifically here. When we go to the top of Mount Gerizim, these are some of the remnants of what some people believe were the temple that was built on Mount Gerizim. So if you remember, Mount Gerizim is where the Samaritans would have built their temple that kind of mimicked the temple in Jerusalem. When Jesus met with the woman at the well, which would have been in Sychar, which is another name for Shechem, Shechem would have been basically, let's see if I have, this is from Mount Gerizim. Shechem would have been down here in the valley below. This is actually Mount Ebal over here, so Shechem would have been right down here in this region. And she would have pointed out to say, well, we worship God in this mountain, the woman at the well, and Jesus, that's where he says, you worship me in spirit and truth. And so that would have been taking place here. These would be the remnants of some of that temple. Most people believe were the remnants of that. The other thing we're going to see on Mount Gerizim is many people believe these were actually remnants or part of the stone wall that would have been built way back by Joshua when they originally came into the land. On Mount Gerizim, they had set up the law, and it was written or whitewashed into the area at Mount Gerizim. And Mount Ebal, if you remember also, which is over here, is many people, half the Israelites stood on Mount Gerizim, half of them stood on Mount Ebal, and they pronounced the blessings and cursings for following and disobeying the law of God. Also here in Shechem, this is where Abraham first came through when he came to the land. Jacob here lived in Shechem for quite some time. This is where the slaughter of Shechem took place. People of Shechem took place after they convinced them to be circumcised after the rape of Jacob's daughter. All takes place in this area. The other significant thing is after Gideon died and has 70 sons, and Abimelech took over and slaughtered the other sons, and the one escaped, and he came up and he was on Mount Gerizim, and he was yelling down to Shechem below about how terrible Abimelech was. So that would all taken place in here on top of the New Testament story of the woman at the well. And there's a few other references as well in the Old Testament. So it's a very significant area when it comes to the Old Testament. We won't be able to get over to Mount Ebal just simply because of the Palestinian territory. There is a national park run by Israelis on Gerizim, which we will spend much of the time. There is also a place still on top of Mount Gerizim that the Samaritans believe that they're God's chosen people, and there's still Samaritans who exist on Gerizim. They have a museum on top of there. We probably won't go to that, but I'll point it out when we drive by it. But that's Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, so we'll take opportunity to recount some of these things that happened in the Bible, and as we go through the Old Testament study, we're reminded of those things on the mountain. We won't get to go see it. There is Jacob's well down there where Jacob originally talks about he had a well. The woman at the well probably would have pulled water out there, met Jesus. Again, it wouldn't look like it does in Jesus' day. They built a church over it. I haven't personally been here. I've seen pictures of it like this, but just to get there is so difficult that it's not mainly worth the time or money because you have to hire a specific driver to get you in there. It's not really necessarily unsafe right now, but getting into the city of Nablus is just difficult. And so we're going to kind of bypass that. From there, what we're going to do is we are going to head then back down the way we came. So we're going to come down Route 60 here, and we're going to come down, and hopefully we're going to stop here at Bethel. And I didn't make a mark of it here, on which I should have. Anyways, it's somewhere here on this road, right in this region here, is the idea of Bethel, and I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it, but it's in this region here is Bethel. Significance of Bethel. It's basically the name itself is the house of God. It's where Abraham, when he came originally, God appeared to him and said, I'm going to give you this land, and you can look to the east and north and south and west. And God said, I'm going to promise this to your descendants. Jacob, when he ran after he had deceived his father, he ran here. He had Bethel. It was here at Bethel that he had the dream. There's actually, I can't find myself a picture of it. There's actually an overlook where you can stand and you have a great distance where you can see north, south, east, and west. On a clear day, they say you can see the Mediterranean from there. You can see the Jordan Valley. Every time I've been there, it hasn't been a clear day. But it's actually not visited by too many people. But I think it's a significant spot because of that. There's not a whole lot to see, but the biblical significance of Bethel in the Old Testament, because it's where God promised to, made the promise to Abraham, Jacob. Also Bethel, if you remember, is where they set up the golden calf. There was one set up in Bethel and one set up in Dan to keep people. Jeroboam set these up to keep people from worshiping down in Jerusalem. So it was a spot of great wickedness, a lot of biblical significance, especially Old Testament at Bethel, really nothing New Testament reference, but it played an important role there. There we're going to see things like this old tree. This is an old oak tree. And what I loved about this tree is it really made a lot of sense when you think of the story of Absalom and how he got his hair tangled in an oak tree. And I thought, how could that happen? Because I think of our oak trees are different. This is their oak tree. And you picture a forest of these trees, and you could see how that would have taken place with Absalom getting his hair tangled. So this is one of their oaks that they have. And this is on the top here of here in Bethel. So that's a lot of our day because there's got a lot more traveling that we have to take. It's like an hour and a half up here and an hour and a half back. And with the stops, that's a lot of the day because we've started here, we've gone south, but then we've gone north. That night, actually, on those evenings, the museum is open later. And we're actually we're not staying in the old city that night. We're staying at an Airbnb outside the city. And so what we're going to do is, the plan is we're going to visit the Bible Lands Museum. And there's a tour that they'll take you on. And what's neat about this museum, it's all focused not just on ancient history, but biblical history. And you see a lot of things like they have a great collection of seals. And you understand when the Bible talks about seals or Ebola, that they have those. Then you go through the Canaanite period and the other things that were taking place, and a lot of these finds have been found in the land of Israel. You see different idols that you hear, idols to like the Baals, what Baal would have looked like, the idol of the Baal, and Asherah, and all these things that are talked about many times in the Old Testament are found here, and they just give you these visuals. And so that's our plan, is to go there. Then we're staying, like I said, in that region, just a few miles from there. The next morning, we are going to stop at the Holocaust Museum. They have very important to stop there. All the tours, in fact, they're required. If you're a regular tour, you're required to stop here by the Israeli government, because it's very important to remember what happened to the Jews specifically during World War II. Very somber place. You go through this hallway and go through all these different rooms describing how it began. Even goes to the idea how many Christians, some helped spare the Jews, but others kind of fell in line, especially specifically mainline denominations like the Catholics and others. And when you think of the stories of Dietrich Bonhoeffer and other events that happened, there's a lot of good, not wanting to say good things, but really good reminders here. This is kind of a hall of pictures, and it's really a unique museum to be there, a reminder of that. It's not just the museum itself, but there's a whole ground. We'll take a little bit of time here on the grounds as they have another thing, a memorial to children. And it's just a somber reminder of what evil can be done and the importance of us, standing up, especially for the Jewish people. From there, we're going to take opportunity to go to what's called the Shrine of the Book. It's part of the Israel Museum now, and it's a real unique structure. This is where the Dead Sea Scrolls are housed. The likelihood of us getting to see them is going to be pretty low right now, because when there's war, possible missiles or bombs coming in, they basically take all the scrolls and they put them in a very sacred place. And they do replace them many times with like replicas, but you don't get to actually see them. Like in this middle is a whole Isaiah scroll that was found, and that will be on display. They'll have a replica of it in many of these places. We probably will still go there because there's a lot of stories behind it. Won't spend a lot of time there, but just the unique significance of it. Also, what I like there as well is they have this model of Jerusalem just right down the road, not right down the road, right down the path. And this is the model of ancient Jerusalem. We'll have visited there, talked a lot about it, and it just helps make more sense of what Jerusalem probably would have looked like in the times of Jesus. And I know in my teaching, I used a lot of these pictures or images from this understanding of Jerusalem. Even in our teaching here, I've used that. So we'll take opportunity to see that during that time. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're going to head out from that region, which would be around Jerusalem. And we're going to be coming out to Joppa, which is up here. And we're going to take
a couple.
What's that?
We don't have the map.
You don't have the map?
We don't have the map.
All right. Do you see my screen? What do you see on the screen?
I see the three of us.
The three of us, yeah.
Okay, it must have just stopped sharing. Let me share again then. We haven't had problems with this since that 1 week. All right. We're there?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. All right. So we have Jerusalem, and then we'll eventually head over to Joppa, which is this area. But on the way, we're going to stop here along this region. We'll stop right around this area here. And what we're going to see is the Valley of Ajalon. And this is the valley where the sun stood still. If you remember the story of the as Joshua, as I was trying to think of the names of the people, but as Joshua was there and as the sun stood still for the battle to take place, and God gave the victory, and that would have taken place here. And we'll kind of recount. There's a map, and we'll point out some of the different things and the significance of that. And right by that is also the road to Emmaus. part of the road to Emmaus. This is the remnants of Emmaus, not a whole lot left that from the times of Jesus. But we're going to take a short walk on the road to Emmaus and recount. This is kind of our last day. So in this, we'll recount a lot of the things that we have seen and heard. If you remember on the road to Emmaus, Jesus explained to the two disciples, they were so disappointed after his death and what's going to happen. And yet he had risen that next morning. They thought his body was stolen. And we'll recount a lot of that here on the road to Emmaus, and we'll see Emmaus. Not a whole lot there physically to see, but just the significance of thinking about that. Depending on time, we will stop at a place called Aphek because it's somewhat on the way there. It's a place where a few biblical references to it. Paul would have been taken there on his way to Caesarea Maritime. And so it's on the way, depending on what time it is. We may stop there, we may not. And then we're going to come to Joppa. And this is really where we're going to finish our trip here, is in Joppa. And Joppa is very significant in the Old Testament. Of course, we remember of Jonah and the story of Joppa. So Joppa would be here. Modern-day Tel Aviv is right along here, and Jaffa is to the south of it. And so really the port of Jaffa is right here, and that's where we'll spend kind of the old city of Jaffa is where we're going to spend just the last of where we're going to be. So there in Jaffa, this is part of the old city. We're going to take time to walk around it. There's some overlooks up here. That'll give us some views. You can go out basically into the Mediterranean. Again, this is where there's biblical significance. There's a handful of references. The most one, of course, is where Jonah would have gone out. This was the only port they would have had there. And you see why that they built Caesarea Maritime, because this was kind of a dangerous port. Here's an ancient picture of the port. There's a lot of rocks, pictures. Again, much of it somewhat looks the same. From the region that it did 100 some years ago that they have in the old city of Joppa. Here's like the streets of the old city of Joppa, kind of like Jerusalem. Really neat, cute little city they've made it into today. But again, the biblical significance of this is where Jonah would have went out. This is also where Simon the Tanner, this is the house of Simon the Tanner. Most likely this wasn't his actual house. They've just recreated this to be kind of more of a tourist type of thing to come see. But we'll talk about this is where Peter would have had the vision with the sheet coming down from heaven saying, kill and eat. And then the messengers came from Cornelius from Caesarea Maritime. This would have happened here in the old city of Joppa. Again, it's been redone since the biblical days, but it gives us that understanding of that. We'll take an overlook. This overlook is just a memorial here on top, but you can see the city of Tel Aviv in the background. Beautiful views and pictures can be taken from here of the Mediterranean, and it's kind of where we'll basically finish our tour and hopefully get to catch a sunset over the Mediterranean that night before we go to our lodging to get everybody ready for the departure the next day. So these 2 days I kind of put into one because there's a lot more traveling. We see a lot of things, but not as much, I wouldn't say the full biblical significance. It's also a day that if there's things we missed or got canceled earlier, that we can kind of make up for that on these days, as well as maybe some extra things if you want to do just a little bit of extra shopping or those are kind of little flex time. I try to keep everything quite busy and crammed, but that's where we'll end our trip. We have a place we'll stay overnight there. Of course, if we do the trip, I know Pete and Bethany have to be at the airport pretty early. Actually, both couples do, not Fred and Julie, but to be there early in the morning to get you on your flight back home. So that's where we're at with our trip. Again, it's not necessarily as much today, so we finish up with that. Other than that, hopefully we'll be able to take the trip. Hopefully something happens these next, several days here. The last I did see is I look at the news like 4 times a day I have different Israeli sites that I look at, the news sites, and right now they're calling 3 weeks, which is just way too tight of a time frame, for any of this. But you never know. I mean, if President Trump decides enough is enough, normally that's it. So, and what he does, who knows? He says one thing one day and completely says the opposite thing the next day, and who knows? And he does it on purpose. I know that, but people think he's crazy, but I think I don't know if he's crazy or calculated or both. I'm not sure sometimes, but so we'll see what happens. I mean, I still hope. I'm just so looking forward to this. We spent our time, prep, plan, but if not, then we'll see for further options what works best to be able to do. So that's kind of the plan. Glad you guys were able to join, and hopefully this will be a help to you whenever you get there. And not just them, but even now, just a little bit more familiarize yourself with the land of Israel. And it helps understand more of the Bible when you know where things are, how things somewhat look. And again, pictures can't do it justice as we do it, but at least it gives just a general idea. Any thoughts, questions?
I've greatly appreciated you doing this. I mean, it's been helpful.
All right.
Yeah, very helpful.
All right. Well, maybe, Lord willing, that God will step in. I selfishly do pray that the world stop just for our sake, but I realize there's a lot more at stake than just our trip that we can postpone and take another time. But, I ask and you shall receive. So I figure I've been praying to whatever God has. So, all right. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks a bunch.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
That was good. I think you repeat yourself a lot and you don't realize it.
I do.
But this
I know I
time
do.
you just kind of stayed a little more focused, and I thought you got it.